Like Ibra.
Hello and welcome to the 0% Club, where we watch and review 0% rated movies on Rotten Tomatoes so that you don't have to. I'm your host, Evan James, and as always, I am joined today by
Tom Budo.
Chris Torres.
Thank you, gentlemen. Today, we are reviewing the movie Nutcracker 3D, also known as The Nutcracker, The Untold Story. This movie ran at about 110 minutes, but it felt like about 4 hours. It was the most excruciating movie we have watched to date, in my opinion.
Yes.
It was not easy.
I mean, to be fair, we've only watched two movies, but Super Babies, Baby Geniuses 2 was like The Godfather compared to this movie.
It was head and shoulders above.
It was bad.
Did you feel like you experienced one of the most beloved stories of our time, like you've never dreamt it before, in 3D?
I felt the 3D without seeing it. That's for sure.
Do you think we missed out on something by not having 3D in this movie? I feel like I missed out a little bit.
I think the only thing we missed out on is a distraction from the plot of the movie. The 3D probably took away, like, maybe distracted you from what you were watching.
You think they were leaning heavily into the 3D to make sure this movie was good? So if you don't see it in 3D, then it's not good?
It might have made it more bearable. Now, 3D usually costs more at the theater. This movie grossed $20.5 million of a whopping $90 million budget. But after doing some research, apparently half of that box office came strictly from Russia.
Yeah, $13.7 million came from Russia.
I guess that makes sense because this director for the movie looks like he was a big Russian director, and maybe he had a lot of support out there.
That makes more sense.
At least $10+ million worth.
Domestic gross in the U.S. $190K.
Wow!
Just to give you a breakdown.
I did not know that.
$190K. There's opening movies that make that in like a theater.
That's not that much money,
dude. $190K is like, I didn't think that was possible.
Oh my god! Can you believe that this director stated that this film has been a dream project of his for over 20 years?
Yeah, I don't know how you could envision this for 20 years and then this is what you come up with as like this is my project. I really want this to be made.
The passion project.
The bankers, the people who invested in the movie lost over 90% of their backing on this movie.
Oh, brutal.
Was the other thing I saw. Unbelievable. So the official box office number was in the U.S. was $195,459.
I wonder what like the last Marvel movie did in its first day.
In its first day in New York City alone.
Yeah, I bet it like tripled that at least.
What, like the Black Panther 2 movie?
That on its first day,
Wakanda
just in
Forever.
New York City, I guarantee it tops that number.
So, first day box office was $84 million.
Can you narrow it down to a city?
It didn't cover the whole budget of this movie in one day.
Let's see if I could do NYC.
That's a failure on Marvel's part.
So it was $84 million from 4,396 locations.
So what's the average per location?
I could figure that out quickly, but just that's, absolutely insane. That's a little over 19,000 per location.
Okay, it's not too bad. So 10 locations equals this movie in the entire United States for that year.
But that was per theater location?
And yeah, that's every location. So obviously there's some theater. That's not, I don't know how much it did in New York City, just on a quick,
including the boroughs, there's got more than 10 theaters.
Google. So, I mean, there's probably some really small theaters that, did whatever. But yeah, either way, it basically...
That's assuming this movie is opening at all theaters. Something tells me this had a little bit more of a limited release.
So that just gives you an idea of how badly this did in the U.S.
I'm just looking at the Wikipedia right now, and they staggered the release dates. November 24, 2010 in Canada, December 8th, 2011 in Hungary, December 28th, 2012 in the UK.
It came out 2 years late in the UK.
Could you imagine just the anticipation in the UK waiting for this movie to reach your theaters?
Oh, finally, the Nutcracker story told in 3D.
There's probably took that long of a debate to see if they actually wanted to subject people to it in the UK.
This movie was so bad and so hard to pay attention to it. I watched it like 2 hours ago, and I already have like forgotten how it ends. Torres, can you take us through the plot of this film?
I will take you quickly through this plot. So the movie starts in a small town. It actually starts in a town center during the day and then abruptly cuts to night without any thought or process behind it. A band is playing and it just cuts. Then we cut to a little kid burning dolls. And that's where we meet Mary and Max, the brother and sister, who are part of this story.
Mary, played by Elle Fanning.
A young Elle Fanning.
Very young Elle Fanning. Probably the highlight of this movie is her performance.
She wasn't terrible for her age, I guess. There's a lot of terrible CGI rats running around, much like walking around New York subways now.
Well, our rats aren't Nazis, like in this movie, at least.
Well, listen, we'll get to that. The maid of the house has to take a swig from a flask also. I don't know if anybody noticed that.
I didn't.
They like call her name and she's like, oh, I must have forgot something. She swigs a flask and just runs up the stairs. The uncle, played by Nathan Lane, shows up to the house and he has a Nutcracker with him, which he says you call it NC for short. It's one of the worst looking Nutcrackers I've ever seen in my life. It's ugly.
Also, just Uncle Albert, his character is supposed to be Albert Einstein.
Yeah.
I could tell.
I
could tell what they were trying to
want
do.
The people
Playing Albert Einstein.
Since nobody has seen this movie in the U.S., I just want I feel like that needed to be said. He is Uncle Albert Einstein to Elle Fanning.
Thank you. So now NC is now in the house. He comes alive and talks to Mary and brings her up a tree. They take this elevator thing up the tree, which is heavily 3D effects that we do not see through our laptop. I don't know if any of you guys enjoyed that scene. Maybe we were missing the 3D glasses.
I think the pirated site that we watched this on wasn't the highest quality. Shockingly, this movie wasn't easy to find on the internet.
It was not. At the top, they find a lady who's the fairy. Mary walks over to her and says, you look exactly like my mother. With a huge smile, the fairy lady says, but I'm not. And I don't know why, but that scene actually made me laugh. I actually rewinded just to see her say that again. I don't know if anybody else noticed that, but it was like such a weird thing to see.
Curbing the little kid, but I'm not.
No, yeah.
NC and Mary hold hands, which turns NC's hand from wooden to a real boy. And then we notice that there's a couple of rats at the top of the tree spying on the whole situation, and they notice that the prince is now alive and he's no longer a nutcracker, a wooden nutcracker.
NC, Nutcracker.
NC is no longer a wooden nutcracker. Now he's NC, the human boy. The rats call out that the music is terrible, which is probably the least terrible thing about the movie up to this point is that music. Then they hit the jetpacks and just fly away into the night. I was astonished to see that.
That probably would have looked pretty cool in 3D.
You think the jetpacks would look good in
the rats
3D?
flying at you in the jetpacks? Probably the highlight of the movie.
With the moon?
Yeah.
Then there was another flashback scene after that looked very 3D. And then they tell the story that the Rat King is scared of the sun, so he burns everything, including toys. And this is the way he makes a fog machine, a smoke machine, and blocks the sun from everybody. After 35 minutes, we finally get the reveal of the Rat King, who is played by John Turturro, who's actually one of my favorite actors. I'm very disappointed in him at this.
It was sad seeing him in this. It hurt. It hurt.
He has a David Bowie type wig from Labyrinth.
And
And
like the Steve Jobs turtleneck.
yeah, and he hits a musical scene and then electrocutes a shark in a tank for no reason.
I like that musical number.
What was the point of that? What was the point of killing that shark? Did he say it in the song that I missed it?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think when I was looking up stuff for this movie, there were many reviews that were very upset with the unnecessary murdering of a pet for literally no reason.
In this children's
He
film.
just does it because he's a psycho.
The death of the shark was a big thing. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
I think that like when you're piling on this movie, that was just another thing to add to the pile
That was the straw that broke the cat back.
of garbage. No, it wasn't the straw. That we'll get to that
Well,
later.
that was the highlight for me. That was the
You
moment
enjoyed
of
watching
this
the shark
movie.
die?
No, up until that very moment, that musical number was the moment in this movie where I went, this might not be that bad. And then from that shark death on, boy, was I wrong.
My note went from the Rat King has a pretty cool aquarium, crossed it out, and said he just killed a shark for no reason.
I like that you wrote down the Rat
Yeah.
King has a pretty cool aquarium.
He had a shark. He's a rat and he has a shark. And then he killed it. So the rats find out that NC is now a human. So they talk to the mother rat, who's the rat queen, I guess. I don't know how the Rat King is the son of the Rat Queen. I think he would be a rat prince, but I don't know. I'm not really up on my monarchy, right?
Well, yeah, no, it depends. It depends on the monarchy. Like in some, the queen can't ever rule. Like they don't let females rule. So I'm assuming in this rat Nazi monarchy, they don't allow females to rule.
Then that works.
Because that all makes sense, totally.
So they recurse NC, turn him back into a regular wooden nutcracker. Mary starts explaining military strategy to him, how to shut down the smoke tracks. And then the tree falls down and Mary wakes up in her room. The Rat King comes back, recruits Max, the brother, because he enjoys killing toys as a captain. NC gets caught in a trap, and when he goes to find the other toys, Rat King rips Styx, who's the drummer toy. Styx.
Yep.
I gotta tell you that. Was I not paying attention, or did that kid get indoctrinated really
Yeah.
quickly?
Who, Max? Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he was like he was like all with his sister, like, yeah, let's do this, let's save NC, and then like the next thing I know, he's just like cruising with the
he
Rat
was like,
King.
Literally was like someone kidnapping a kid. He's just like, hey, kid, I got some toys in my trunk. And he's like, oh, sweet. All right, cool. Let's go steal everyone's toys.
So the Rat King rips Styx's head off and starts throwing it around, which I think is another 3D scene that we missed out on. Max becomes a traitor. He starts to hang with the rats and starts riding some rad motorcycles that are equipped with machine guns. And they're just blazing away through these tunnels. A ratification music number hits, and they all take toys from children for burning so that they can continue to block the sun out. It's a sad scene, actually.
Oh man.
And the Rat King is walking through these halls, and he has photographs of children crying all over his walls, which made me uncomfortable. I don't know about you guys.
The movie in general made me uncomfortable, so yeah.
The rat faces made me uncomfortable.
Yes. Mary jumps down the garbage chute to save NC. She's begging the fairy lady to tell her how to save NC, make him back into a human. The fairy lady simply says, I have no clue, and then disappears. There's no reason for her to be in this scene if she has no advice for Mary, honestly.
That's the only scene and I laughed at where she like, you have this heartfelt plea like for help, and she just goes, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then just
disappears.
like kind of like disappears on the whisper.
Yeah, it's insane.
But
Mary emotionally cries onto NC, which brings him back to life because that's what happens.
He just needed love.
Now that NC is alive,
someone
he
love him.
causes a revolt in the smokestack factory. He really leads these people, and people are flipping out, and they're fighting back, and it's what it is. Rat King now kidnaps Mary, and there's a short chase scene, and then NC crashes the motorcycle with the ape toy. The Rat King and the mother get into a helicopter to escape. They're flying around. They try to kill NC, but little do they know, NC grabbed onto the helicopter, and now he's swinging around. He climbs himself on, and he's fighting the Rat King, and then when they crash, the Rat King and his mom turn back into regular rats, and the sun shines again on this very sad town because the smokestacks are done. The fairy lady, who has nothing but bad news to tell Mary, tells her, "You better go home now because you got to wake up. This is all a dream. None of this happened." So she like brings more bad news. She's really just a terrible character. Mary's crying. She's being taken away. NC promises, "I'm gonna see you again. Don't worry about it." And she's like, "Oh my God, I'm leaving." Mary wakes up from her dream. Her parents are like, "Oh my God, were you dreaming?" And she's like, "Yeah, it was beautiful." And the dad is like, "I can't wait to hear it." And that brings a smile to Mary's face. Then Mary's uncle comes back and introduces a new neighbor, Nicholas Chance, aka NC for short. Mary and NC skate around in an ice rink, and credits roll. That is Nutcracker 3D.
Oh my goodness.
Oh boy.
So I gotta say, we've been mentioning, if we missed out on anything by not seeing it in 3D, this movie actually earned a Razzie nomination for, quote, worst eye-gouging misuse of 3D.
I like that it was nominated, but didn't win. Didn't win that somehow.
Yeah, it didn't win. Unless this article just didn't show me. No, it didn't win. It got nominated. So that's interesting.
It lost to The Last Airbender.
Was that the same year?
Yeah. It did win Metacritic's Best and Worst Films of 2010, I mean. And Ellie Fanning was nominated for the Young Artist Awards for Best Young Actress.
I thought she was okay for her age.
Yeah, she was probably the only decent role in the movie.
Yeah, I love Nathan Lane, but my God,
me too.
The Albert Einstein accent
it's
was so bad.
That's when you were watching it, John Turturro would every once in a while break out with a New York accent as a Rat King, and I'm like, he just can't hold it back.
Yeah.
This was the thing, right? So the thing that people, obviously it's supposed to be a Christmas story, a kid's movie, like Evan said, a beloved tale that people have known for years. The thing that we all saw, and Evans alluded to, like about 35, 40 minutes into the movie, when you finally see him, that every person who sees this movie couldn't shake, was that the director decided to make this a Nazi allegory.
Yeah.
This movie, the Rat King and his army.
It's a real weird choice.
It's a very weird choice.
It's so weird.
I would never want to watch this for Christmas.
Everything down to like the factory and people working in it and burning toys, like the whole allegory of like the Holocaust and Nazis. It's just it's supposed to be a Christmas movie.
Well, that really has been one of my favorite reviews from a critic. Peter Canavasi from Groucho Reviews said, quote, "Vienna, the 1920s. Albert Einstein sings, a world of proto-Nazi space ranger rats led by a nasty singing Andy Warhol rodent. But I don't have to tell you the beloved story of the Nutcracker." Like, what is this movie?
I don't know much about the Nutcracker story, and I was really hoping I would know more about it after this because, I mean, everybody heard of the Nutcracker, and you kind of have an idea what it is, but I've never actually watched it. And I'm pretty sure that this has nothing to do with the Nutcracker.
Well, it's funny that you mention it because a fact about the movie is that the film does not credit the original story or its author.
Shocking.
So I don't know if he was trying.
He went into business for himself.
To give you the original story.
It's a 20-year dream in the making, okay? He wasn't going to let the Nutcracker's original story hold his creative dream down.
Here's my question. Do you think he had an idea of a movie and it wasn't going to get made the way he said? So he's like, if I make it a Christmas movie, I could probably swing it and still have my story be told.
I kind of think so. I think this guy said, I really want to make a 3D movie. I want Nazis flying on jetpacks. And they said, we'll never pay for this. And he said, all right, it's going to be the Nutcracker Christmas movie. And they went, yeah, sure. Kids movie? Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, and then it's not the Nutcracker, and then he repurposes 8 songs with original lyrics. He doesn't even use the classic songs to the story.
The only song I remembered was I think NC at one point is like Styx is walking around trying to distract a guard, and he's whistling one of the songs from Nutcracker. Also, do you remember that scene when they first jump in through the chute? The two guards are like coming from the other side of the room, but one of them looks like he's zipping up his pants. Like, what was going on there? Maybe I need to rewatch it. Or, I was watching on a laptop, so I might have been seeing something wrong.
You're noticing some wonderful details I did not notice.
To me, the funniest thing is, well, so I said I laughed at only one thing. I laughed at two things, and this one was the biggest laugh for me. I don't know if you guys remember. So when Elle Fanning and NC are plotting to figure out how to overthrow the Rat King. Okay, she says, "Why don't you shut down the smoke factory?" And NC is like, "Oh my god, you're a genius. Like, he didn't think of this before." Yeah. And then she's like, "Oh, like, who says girls can't be military leaders?" It's like, no one thought to try to shut down the factory that has the smoke blocking the... It killed me. Like, oh my god, shut down the factory?
Brilliant.
That's brilliant.
That's why I mentioned that they were they were discussing military strategy at one point on top of the tree.
But that was the military strategy.
That was it.
Shut down the factory.
If he's scared of the sun, just shut down the factory that's causing the sun to be blocked out by smoke.
Did we accidentally pick two movies in a row that are set in like Germany? Like, I
don't know.
At least for part of the movie.
I don't know why we have this Nazi undertones with our first two choices.
I was just like, once I saw the beginning, like the opening few minutes, I'm like, wait, but we picked another movie that...
I mean, come on. When we said we were watching Nutcracker 3D, you didn't instantly think, "Oh, okay, another Nazi movie." You didn't immediately put those two together.
I think we're gonna have to pick a movie next that has no Nazis in it for the sake of all of us.
If I find out when we start watching Jaws 2 that there are Nazis in that movie,
it's Jaws for the Revenge.
Sorry, Jaws for the Revenge. What is it, Grease 2 that we have to watch?
No, it's Staying Alive.
No, it's
Staying Alive.
It's Staying Alive. It's the sequel to the Saturday Night Fever.
Oh, there's definitely gonna be Nazis in that movie.
Also, this guy, I just looked at the director's IMDb, and after this movie, he didn't get the chance to direct another like English speaking movie for 6 years.
Yeah, his first 20 years of his career looks like he made movies only in the Soviet Union.
Dude, this guy won an Emmy for outstanding directing for a miniseries or special. Wow. And then he puts this out.
Well, he also won the worst limited release by a Metacritic's award.
Which one's more prestigious? Definitely the Metacritic's award.
You don't hear about many Metacritic awards.
Up and down career right there.
I mean, nominee for worst eye-gouging misuse of 3D at the Raspberry Awards. I love that title.
Here's one from Roger Ebert, who gave it 1 out of 4 stars. From what dark night of the soul emerged the wretched idea of the Nutcracker in 3D? Ebert went on to claim it is as one of those rare holiday movies that may send children screaming under their seats.
Oh. I've got some more fun quotes. Liam Lacey of Globe and Mail said, "One of the most misguided children's film ever made."
I like this one. My favorite one was from Peter Hartlaub. Imagine watching Tchaikovsky's ballet after taking a handful of peyote on a day when all of the dancers call in sick and the orchestra decides to play a different set of the composer's works.
That's actually a pretty good description.
That is a good one.
I read that as he figured out how to put this into words.
I thought this one perfectly summed up how I felt watching the movie. Jim Slowtek said, "A Holocaust motif in a children's movie based on the Nutcracker? No, we're not making this up." That's how I felt watching this movie. I was like, what? This? Really? All right.
It's really hard. I don't know. It's just hard. It's hard to put into words like what you're watching as you're watching it, and the fact that he onboarded so many, or at least 2 super famous actors at the time.
When Totoro's mouth turns into a rat mouth, it's some of the worst use of CGI I've ever seen in my life. And that's saying a lot because a lot of this movie is some of the worst CGI I've ever seen in my life. And it's 2010.
That was the moment where I also went, I wonder if in 3D this looked even worse, where he's like chomping at the screen.
Were the parents like your least out of the two movies we watched so far? The parents, the dad was like it's such a piece of shit. I could not stand the dude.
Insufferable.
He was so mean.
He was not nice.
Anyway, I'm sorry. What were you gonna say?
I have two questions. The first one was, I probably missed this, but what was that pebble that she shows NC at the end of the movie?
Oh, her dad. It's like, isn't her dad's lucky? What was it? It's dad's lucky rock or something stupid?
Okay.
Or magic rock.
Yeah, something stupid. He shares like a story.
Yeah,
like halfway through the movie
with his brother, right?
Yeah.
But I get that. But why is she showing it to NC like has some significance? Like, I have this lucky rock, and then it just cuts to a rink.
Yeah, it comes up at the beginning and then the end, and that's it.
It's such a weird thing. My second one is, what is your favorite scene? If you have to find one scene that you enjoyed watching.
I kind of spoiled mine already. John Turturro, his introduction, that opening scene, that's when I felt this movie might be so bad that it's kind of good. And then the rest of the film was just painfully bad.
That damn shark, man.
That poor shark.
Poor shark. What about you, Boots?
I mean, if you're forcing me to pick one, I think because of how ridiculous it is, the first time they walk into the giant room, the room in the house that just becomes like a 400-foot room or whatever, and they go into like the dollhouse, and you have this creepy ass clown just come to life, and you're not prepared for the dude's like, oh yeah, the dolls talk, and you're like, oh well, it's a kids movie, this will be fine. And then like, I'm not afraid of clowns, but when he opens up the door and these things are talking, you're like, it's really weird, man. I think that just encapsulated the whole movie for me. I was like, this is weird.
Yeah, it was creepy for a kids movie.
It was very creepy. It was dark.
Yeah.
Just like Ebert said, it was very dark.
Or maybe Nathan Lane trying to sing as Albert Einstein. I think that might have been my favorite scene, because it's not a very convincing
oh, poor Nathan Lane.
Accent.
He's supposed to be this genius, but his whole thing is just use your imagination. It's real if you believe it. No science behind any of it.
What was your favorite scene, Torres?
My favorite scene is when they first get NC and Max decides to try to crush 3 nuts and breaks NC's mouth. It's like,
oh yeah,
that's a real dick move, man.
It's a
you know the Nutcracker's not going to be able to crack 3 nuts at once. It was also a very flimsy Nutcracker. Let's be honest. We've all seen a Nutcracker, right?
Yes.
That was a flimsy Nutcracker.
I saw someone compare the Nutcracker, his face, to the Canadians in the South Park movie.
Yeah, that's fitting.
That makes a lot of sense.
Well, the floppy heads.
Because you're right, it wasn't very well constructed.
He was terrible looking.
Nutcracker.
He was terrible looking.
When I read this user review, I thought maybe there was a conspiracy theory, because James W., user on Rotten Tomatoes, said the doll is Satan in disguise.
Oh.
So I was like, what is this? Is this
Which doll?
A hell allegory? I don't know. I'm thinking NC.
NC is the devil?
Right?
Why?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
But I like this other review. Ryan L. said, I would rather rip my eyes out slowly with a spoon. That's all. That's all he said.
I'm going to double down. I think the fairy lady was the worst character. Way worse than the parents. All she had was bad news. Like, nothing was good that ever came from her. And she didn't help.
Yeah, you'd think she was going to be this, like, larger story about, like, her relationship with her mother, but they didn't really, like, hit on that point very hard.
She's like, you look just like my mother. She's like, well, I'm not.
Yeah.
She's like, how do I bring NC back to life? I don't know.
I should take it back. That's the best scene in the movie for me. Her saying, I don't know. Bye. And then just comes back at the end to celebrate the victory, like she did anything to contribute.
And then they fix everything. They save the world, or the town, and immediately the fairy lady's like, it's time for you to wake up. This isn't real. Like, don't enjoy this moment. Just go back to your real life that you hate. So the fairy lady was the worst for me.
Terrible character.
Cards on the table. Did Nutcracker 3D earn its 0%? Evan.
I'm gonna say yes. At first, like I was saying, there was a moment in this movie where I thought, nah, this thing's getting a worse rap than it deserves. But as it went on, it was just so boring, and it felt so long. And things happened. Like, more happened in this movie than Baby Geniuses 2. Yet somehow that was more enjoyable than this. This movie earned its 0%, in my opinion.
Budo.
Okay, so cards on the table.
Cards on the table.
After watching this movie, it makes me want to take back my answer from Super Babies Baby Geniuses 2 when I said that earned the 0% rating. I want to say that did not earn it because this without Hundo P deserved its 0% rating. It was the most agonizing hour and whatever 50 minutes I have ever experienced watching something. It's so bad. There's at least Super Babies. It's like, all right, maybe there's something redeeming. Like, it's just so bad, but it's like in a funny way bad. This is just terrible.
I agree.
So this deserved it. This is we've only seen 2 movies, but this set the bar for me. I was like, this could end up being the worst one we watch.
Torres, cards on the table. What you got?
Cards on the table. Tom took the words right out of my mouth. I was actually going to say I feel bad for being so hard on Baby Geniuses. This movie is by far the worst movie I've ever sat through. And I've sat through a lot of bad movies. I watch a lot of bad movies. For fun sometimes. And sometimes for this. And this was the worst. And I know that's saying a lot for only our second episode, because I could probably come back and do this, but right now I'm giving this the big 0.
I can't wait to see if we get worse in this bar. I mean,
it's bad. It's like there's gonna be movies we watch that we're gonna subject ourselves to where we're gonna be like, that was pretty awful, but like, you know, it's either gonna be unintentionally funny or like it's so bad it's amusing. You know, like one of those movies like The Room or whatever, where, you know, it's like famously bad, but people laugh at it. Like, it feels like we're going to see it run into a bunch of those movies. This one, there's just no redeeming qualities to it. There's nothing good about it.
Yeah, I felt like Baby Geniuses kind of touched on that line of like, this could be fun to watch with the right group of people.
Yeah,
this
for sure.
Nutcracker 3D is not fun with any people. This is just brutal.
There was like a small second there where I was like, maybe I should bring this downstairs and set it up on the TV and watch it with my mom because she enjoys Christmas movies. And I'm so glad I did it because this was awful.
It is, yeah, I mean, and unsurprisingly, it is the only 0% Nutcracker movie on Rotten Tomatoes. It's the worst Nutcracker movie ever made.
But you know what? Super Babies Baby Geniuses 2 isn't the worst Baby Genius movie in the BGCU.
Evan,
yes.
Did you go back and watch one of the other Nutcracker movies just to get an idea, just like you did for Baby Geniuses 1?
I did not go get some backstory for the canon of the Nutcracker story.
You're killing me.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't. This didn't seem like a straight sequel, so I didn't want to taint my views of the Nutcracker.
So, our up-to-date rankings after watching 2 movies. Number 1 worst movie we've ever watched, Nutcracker 3D. Number 2, Baby Geniuses 2.
I will also go out on a leap. I think there's 43 movies on Rotten Tomatoes that are ranked at 0%, and I bet Baby Geniuses will hold up and not be one of the 10 worst movies we watch.
Wow.
I think it's going to hold a special place in your hearts, guys. There's some wonderful moments in that movie.
It's the first one.
Whoopi Goldberg, O-Town. I mean, come on. There's some great moments.
I mean, the big kahuna, you can't.
The kahuna.
This movie could have used some kahuna. Here's another question, guys. Kahuna versus NC.
Yeah.
Who do you got?
Oh, come on. It's not even a question.
Oh,
Not even a question.
Dude, it's
Kahuna.
In a land
We've already
sign.
seen Kahuna take out Nazis, all right? NC couldn't hold a torch.
All right, the Super Baby Superheroes versus those toys from the house.
The babies.
The babies, but I mean, we barely saw the babies use their powers.
That's true.
Stupid girl.
The bigger question is does the Kahuna like beat up John McClane or something like that?
Oh yeah,
I think so.
He'd grab his wrist and flip him over in 2 seconds.
Kahuna had moves.
He just takes a shot of that steroid drink and then
juicing. All right, that does it for this episode of the 0% Club. Thank you for listening. As always, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for listening to this very special holiday edition of the Nutcracker 3D. The next episode, we will be reviewing Jaws: The Revenge.
Let's go.
As always, thank you all for listening. Happy holidays, everybody.
Have a good one, guys.
See you guys. Happy holidays.